exports out of this state already of products that are made here of 60 billion plus. We have the second largest foreign trade zone. And we have 20% of the U.S. companies that export. And you think about all the borders that exist in the United States, 20% of the exports of those companies are residing in the state of Florida. And it's because we have one of the most robust infrastructures in the United States, boasting 15 deep water seaports, 19 commercial service airports, 2 spaceports, and 12,000 plus miles of highways and nearly 3,000 miles of freight rail routes. In fact, Florida is ranked first in the United States, and you just heard from Bill talk about being the world leader in aviation and aerospace manufacturing. And that was recognized in 2015 by PricewaterhouseCoopers. So we are leading the way. And Florida's Space Coast is one of those areas. And Linda Weatherman and her team are proud to announce today, in conjunction with SCB Marketing and the anchor hubs of Harris, Embraer, and Northrop Grumman, that the first Florida Aerospace Aviation World Showcase Trade Show will be hosted next year in April. So you'll be seeing more information about that as it comes forward. But today, to introduce our next speaker, is a good friend, been working with her for several years. She's the senior manager of the business development for the Economic Development Commission. She's world class. Welcome to the stage, Elizabeth High from the Florida Space Coast EDC.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much for having us be here and be a part of this event today. It's very exciting, and it's my distinct pleasure in just a few minutes to introduce Karen Thompson, the Chief Technologist at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. But before I invite Karen to come forward, I want to provide a little bit of background about why Karen and I are here today. In January of this year, NASA and the EDC of Florida Space Coast jointly announced a new pilot program in alignment with NASA's national effort for regional economic development. Our program is called Technology Docking, and it's all about connecting NASA technology, capabilities, and resources to the needs of private sector companies to really help solve technology challenges which exist out there in the private sector. Although the Kennedy Space Center is right in our backyard over on the Space Coast, we still hear from our local companies that they want to find ways to better partner with NASA. They want to collaborate and connect and have that direct interface. So we took that feedback and we went and started a discussion with NASA a couple of years ago to say, how can we deepen our collaboration efforts? How can we better connect your resources, your technology, your out-of-this-world projects that are going on to our regional industry? We have over 500 manufacturing and high technology companies based on the Space Coast. There's a huge platform and opportunity for connection and collaboration. And so much of that NASA technology is transferable to all different sectors of business. Concurrently, at NASA headquarters, they were developing a program for regional economic development. That Regional Economic Development Program, or RED program, laid the groundwork for us as a local economic development organization to partner with NASA at the agency level and coordinate with our longstanding partners at the Kennedy Space Center to bring that type of opportunity to our existing industry base. We are so proud to be launching Technology Docking as part of NASA's national pilot program right here in our own community. Technology Docking is that answer that our local companies were looking for a structured interface with NASA. The overall goal is to match NASA technology, capabilities, expertise to solve challenges that are being experienced in the private sector. Simple example could be a company that is developing a new widget and they want to use a different type of material that maybe has never been used in their specific industry before. We could pair them with a NASA subject matter expert proficient in the use of that material to help them integrate it into their design. This program is really a technology enabler, a problem solver for our region. Thus far, we have met with about 45 different companies and coordinated conversations directly with NASA representatives to talk about the kinds of challenges they might be facing. Over the next month, we'll be identifying about 10 companies to receive specific NASA assistance through an event that we will host in September called a Technology Roadshow. NASA's endgame here is to develop a model that can be deployable in markets across the US. From our perspective, as we work over the next couple of years to build this program, our existing industry base is able to contribute directly to how it's being formed. Technology docking is Florida's pilot program for regional economic development with NASA, and there's relevance to all of us in this room. In fact, the 10 companies that will be selected to participate in the event that will take place in September, we're expecting that a couple of them are going to come from the greater Central Florida area, outside of that boundary of Brevard County, but really across Central Florida. But even beyond that, NASA has a framework in place to work with private sector that's been there for years. They have lots of different programs, and all of us can take advantage of those programs and bring those back to our existing industry base. And that's really one of the reasons that we wanted to be here today, to communicate those types of messages to you. Just as Bill Johnson said, we have to take care of our existing industry that's here and help them be successful. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Karen Thompson. Again, she is the Chief Technologist for NASA's Kennedy Space Center. It is such a privilege to have her here today to talk about the exciting technology that is going on at the Kennedy Space Center, and also just the way that companies can work with NASA. She will highlight a little bit more on this RED program, Regional Economic Development Initiative, and also talk a little bit more about how, again, we can all engage with NASA and bring technology enabling opportunities to our existing bases of companies. Thank you. Karen?
What I want, you've got, and it might be hard to handle. But like a flame that burns a candle, the candle feeds the flame. Yeah, what I got, full stop.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been with NASA about 27 years. Before that, I was with small businesses doing contract research. So I really understand a lot about some of the companies that you're serving. I've also worked with large companies and teamed with large companies and small, as well as other government agencies. And I'm in a council that has a chief technologist from each of the 10 NASA centers. So we all work with one another. So the things that I'm going to talk about are where you can get not only technical help from Kennedy Space Center, but the reach to the other 9 centers as well. So I want to just talk from these slides a little bit. First of all, I wanted to bring up that many of you know that at KSC we're known for being able to fix things, fix problems. We end up with unforeseen problems at the launch site. For example, satellites and payloads that end up coming to us to launch, and then we have to do problem solving before we're able to launch them. So we have a team of experts from basic research types of work to fixing problems at the pad when we're ready to launch. And now we have that team that's here to support companies and to help with technical issues. So we're really excited about this new pilot program with the EDC. So next slide, please. Now, the technology docking is unique to Florida with a focus on the Space Coast region, as Elizabeth said, but it's also part of a pilot program throughout NASA. Now, it's interesting that of the pilots, this is the only economic development partner that's part of those pilots. So we're excited about trying this out and seeing how we can help companies solve problems. And as Elizabeth said, the Regional Economic Development Initiative is called RED for short, because you know at NASA we love our acronyms. But we're wanting to leverage the capacity of and reach of the regional partners, and then work closely with NASA. In fact, the EDC has been putting this partnership together for 2 years, and we're excited to finally be able to launch it. So next slide, please. So we're going to be building an inventory through this technology docking of technical capabilities of our region, and then identifying the challenges that manufacturers are facing through a technical industry survey. And then responses are going to be the starting point for us to connect technical challenges with NASA-based solutions. So the goal is to drive technology advancement in the region. So we are also supporting small business innovation research efforts locally and partnering to promote major technology enablers like Florida Tech's new Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Innovative Design, CAMID. It's under construction in Palm Bay, and then this will allow providing technical capabilities for small companies. For example, if they need a specialized piece of equipment or access to a new software suite, they're going to be able, for a fee, to go and use that equipment until they're able to acquire those on their own. Next slide, please. So technology is about connecting industry with NASA capabilities, expertise, and assets agency-wide. Many people don't realize that at the Kennedy Space Center you see a lot of launches and landing, but you don't see the labs that are behind the scenes. We have been doing amazing research and technology development at the Kennedy Space Center. We do them at all technology readiness levels. In fact, I manage all of those programs for the Kennedy Space Center, where we're doing basic research, for example, developing whole new materials and whole new technologies that we then advance. And as we're doing all of that work, we work with partners to do that. And so I'll be touching a little bit later on some of those other programs, because we don't do these alone. We reach out to people throughout the country, in fact, to international partners as well, working with many to collaboratively develop those technologies. We met with a company recently, and this is a good example of the technology docking. This particular company had a scenario where they shipped out products, and they arrived at the destination disassembled. And they were baffled because they looked through their processes, through all their quality control and everything, and they didn't understand how these components all came apart. Well, if they had had a subject matter expert or access to a vibration table, they might have been able to figure that out, that they had this issue, before they ended up with the embarrassment of sending it to a customer with it totally disassembled. But those kinds of things we can help with. Had they had the access to these subject matter experts, then they may have, as Elizabeth said, they might have had access to new materials, new ways of sealing components, new ways of keeping all the screws together and not being able to come loose. But over the years, we as taxpayers have provided funding that has helped NASA stay on the cutting edge on technology. Well, this is a chance for NASA to give back and help companies. So it's a reverse situation, because we have certainly gained a lot of good expertise in technology with our partnerships with industry. The next chart, please. This is a fairly busy chart, but why I'm putting it up here is that as an agency, NASA has different technology areas, and these are our roadmap areas. These are the areas where we maintain expertise, and we've developed gaps that we need to do for our future missions. For example, sending humans to Mars. That's one of my big areas at the Kennedy Space Center, is how are we going to send humans to Mars, as well as other human destinations like asteroids or back to the moon. And we have to figure out the technologies that are going to allow us to go there and to operate on those surfaces. Well, in the different technology areas, we have 10 centers. So we don't want each center to have experts in every area. Why I have this up here is the areas that have stars are the ones that are core areas for the Kennedy Space Center. But through the subject matter experts that can help companies, we have the reach to all these areas. And Kennedy does support many of the areas that don't have stars on there. But the areas that we don't lead, you may need a subject matter expert from the Glenn Research Center or from the Langley Research Center, we can reach out to those as well. And we typically team in that fashion. But this just shows you the plethora of technologies that we're doing throughout NASA. And a lot of these have great commercial applications. And so there's quite a large area that you can look at as you're talking to companies. They may talk about some small area that they're working in, and you think, oh, well, NASA doesn't have anything to do with that. Well, most likely we do if you take a look at the areas. And we have this online at our www.nasa.gov, where you can go and look at the specifics of each of those areas. Next slide, please. I just wanted to show a few examples where we are teaming with partners to accomplish our goals. This is one of our new projects that we just had turned on, where we look at asteroids, and asteroids contain resources such as water and metals for feedstocks. And we're trying to figure out how we can use those resources when we're at other destinations. But in order to figure all that out, we have to first find those resources. Well, we don't want to send humans into some areas like craters on Mars or into the inside of an asteroid. So we're developing a hovercraft that can go in and collect those samples so that we can test them. Well, as we do this work, we're teaming with other partners. And you see on this slide, we're teaming with Astrobotic, with Honeybee, as well as Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. So this way we can team with one another, learn from one another, and actually it really helps NASA stay on the cutting edge when we team with others, and it helps them as well, because different groups operate in different ways and they have different areas of expertise. And when you bring the whole collaborative partnership together, everyone learns from everyone else. So I know at Kennedy, I really push this kind of collaboration. I was a research polymer chemist in my early days in my career, and like 30 years ago, I was developing new materials for all kinds of unusual applications, from helping soldiers to be protected from chemical warfare agents. I helped the submarine technologies for their sonar applications. I built a new zipper for our suits that we use for refueling rockets. I've just developed all kinds of things, and as I did it, I found that I really wanted to team with others in industry, other agencies, other NASA centers, and academia. That's just very important to me. So actually about 22 years ago, I started a program of partnership with industry, and we started going into it in a big way. And now the Kennedy Space Center has been recognized for our center innovation budget that each chief technologist gets. For the amount of money I get from NASA, I increase it threefold with other partners that leverage funding, like other agencies and programs within NASA, as well as industry and academia, and we're able to put together a much larger scope of projects. So when all the NASA centers were graded on how they used that funding, Kennedy keeps ranking #1 of all 10 centers, which you don't expect because we're not categorized a research center. But it's because we do this partnership that we stay on the cutting edge and we're recognized for doing the best on collaborative work. Next slide, please. And this is a brand new one that we're doing. This one is one where we're trying to get ready for going to Mars. One of the things that we are doing in our SwampWorks lab, that's a surface systems lab for work on future destinations on other planets, we want to live off the land and use the materials that we find there. So we actually are coming up with manufacturing techniques where we would use the regolith or soil on another planet, mix it with other materials, or sinter it where we partially melt it and make landing pads or launch pads, or in this case, we're teaming with some partners to develop tiles. And this particular one, we're teaming with a small business in Gainesville, Florida, SCF Processing, LLC. We also have a fellowship program with funding coming in where one of our early career employees is getting her master's degree in specialty materials, and she's on this project. We also have the Pisces, that's Pacific International Space Center for Exploration Systems in Hawaii, and they put money in as well to be teamed with us, and they actually have placed these tiles in an area with high pedestrian traffic so we can test it out. It's using basalt materials. That's a natural material in Hawaii, and it's really exciting. They just laid the tiles and they're going to see how they do, but this is kind of a proof of concept sort of thing. But, you know, I bring up Pisces. Well, we can get proposals from those in our own Florida region. I'm hoping to see more and more of that. And I'll tell you a little bit later how I'm personally trying to help get the word out in Florida and allow some leveraged partnerships just mostly in our area. Okay, next slide, please. And this is another exciting project, Veggie. This testing is going on right now at the space station. We have been doing some studies on how you would grow plants in space or how you would grow it in a habitat on another planet. And so we actually do pillows of seeds and watering in that pillow in order to grow the plants. And so we're growing lettuce, and we're getting it so that our astronauts can eat fresh foods. They love the idea. In fact, the Russian astronauts, the cosmonauts, were able to eat the food, but ours were not until we made sure that everything was fine. So we're trying to do that. We're a little more careful with our U.S. astronauts, but we're growing these plants, and we've already grown them in a habitat in the desert. We did a test habitat where we did this growth, and now we're doing this. So you can actually go online and look at experiments being done, and you can see Mark Kelly actually doing the testing with this particular work. And we have several partners on this one with universities and industry working with us on these projects. Next slide, please. Now, this one had a problem with the lettering. It was, I guess, created on a Mac and then now put onto a PC. But I wanted you to see the images because this is a case where we're developing experiments where we have a fluid in a tank at 0 gravity. And we are trying to figure out the slosh mechanics of that. And it might look like you know, just a toy. But actually what we're doing is we're trying to come up with better ways of understanding the fuel that's used in new rockets, because we're putting too much weight into our fuel, into our propellant, and it doesn't allow us as much weight for the experiments that we're launching. So if we understand the dynamics of the slosh better, we can better gauge just how much fuel we need and not have to take so much excess. So we're actually doing some experiments using spheres that was developed by MIT, and then for this particular one with slosh, we're also teamed with the Florida Institute of Technology on this one. But it's a really interesting experiment, and whenever we were doing it, we were getting a whole lot of hits with the social media. It was just a huge success because a lot of people found a lot of interest in it. So that was a fun one for us, as well as learning a lot. Next slide, please. And this is an example. You know, I told you that out of the Center Innovation Fund that I'm responsible for, we just this past year, these are our partners that are allowing us to divulge that they worked with us. We team with a lot of industry partners where they don't want their competitors to know that they're working in a certain area. So we have special agreements with them where we don't publicize that we're working with them. And so these are the ones that do want to have people know that they're working with us. But this is just from 1 year, this past year, all the various partners that we had teamed with us on our projects. And we only do like 6 to 8 projects a year. So you can see that we highly leverage those and allow these partners to stay on the cutting edge as well. Next slide, please. And this is just my final slide where I'm just wanting you to understand other ways of teaming with us, the traditional ways, as Elizabeth talked about. I think a lot of times companies don't realize that they can team with NASA. You know, they think, oh, well, we're not big enough, or we may not be real experts in that particular area. Well, you would be surprised how well different companies have a great fit with us. So we really are reaching out. We have our traditional programs with our small business innovation research and small business technology transfer projects. Those are really great programs and actually provide quite a bit of funding to our partners. And we also have, I mentioned earlier that I have a new thing that I've started over the last 2 years. I've been doing something that I call Technology Advancing Partnerships. I had a group of early career employees, and I gave them an assignment. They had a learning assignment to help advance their careers and learn more. And I suggested to them, find out how to go and do a call to get industry and universities to leverage with us and team with us on projects. We really want to do more of that. I was at a NASA-wide team where we were trying to get more of those kinds of partnerships going, and they suggested that Kennedy do a pilot in our region. And so we actually put a call out, and it's not confined to just Florida, but it's heavily advertised in Florida. And so we put out this call, and so next year I anticipate doing one again, where companies and universities can send in proposals. And what we do in the call is we'll bring up certain technology areas that we're especially wanting proposals on. Some of them we give very specific areas, but then others it's very broad, where it can just fit in general areas. And we select which ones we're going to turn on, and it's turned out to be a big success. So that's something I wanted to draw your attention to, so that next year, when hopefully we can do this again, and you can watch out for that advertisement. Anyway, I just wanted you to see some of the ways you can team with NASA, and would love for you to indicate your interest in teaming with us.